Today, we're going to be talking about free speech and why I need a new router. This fucking thing, man. I have no idea why stuff randomly does not want to load. It's very frustrating. Okay. I wanted to discuss. I don't know if I don't really have these numbered. I'm gonna say roughly 5 things. I have like 5 things like highlighted here of like notes. One of them is sort of just a criticism, an argument he made, like a sort of bad analogy, which I guess isn't really a criticism, an argument of itself. Just saying you should improve on this. So I'm gonna be talking about a conversation between Roger Graham and I think his name's Angel Eduardo. Sorry, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that. A fellow New York City-based person. Well, I guess I'm not. I'm in Florida now. Anyway, we're gonna be addressing some free speech arguments. And what I appreciate about their conversation is I think Dr. Graham did a really good job of getting him to like flesh out some of his ideas. And he didn't provide a whole lot of pushback. It was more like an interview than it was like a debate or like a conversation, which I think there's value in that, right? Because I think when you push people on these ideas that are really core to them, there's this tendency to like bottle up and like attack out. And I feel like having a more friendly dialogue there was a good way for me to get like an idea of what point, like what Eduardo's beliefs or Angel's beliefs were here. So I did appreciate it because usually like I've always been searching for someone who can give me good pushback on my views on free speech. And I don't feel like the arguments against my position tend to be very strong, to be honest. Well, I don't think his arguments were strong necessarily. I think they were clear and I can understand where they were coming from. So I think it's a very good basis for me to like talk about this. Let's see. We're not going to watch the video for 2 reasons. One, it does not want to load, because my router is potato. I will never buy Netgear again in my entire fucking life. Absolute piece of crap. And it's an hour and 60-minute video. I'm not going to do the whole like, oh, pause and respond thing. I'm just going to kind of try and go over some general points. Fuck, these are not in order. These are not in order in the video, but he brings up a stoplight analogy a couple of times. How the way he views like free speech, like, you know, you can say things where there's not consequences. And one of the analogies he makes is like, you know, you can run a red light and you have the freedom to run a red light, but that doesn't mean there's not consequences. Now, I would sort of agree with that analogy, but not in the way that I think he would be okay with. So driving is a privilege we grant you in this society, right? It's not in the Constitution. It's just a right that we give you. It's regulated, usually at a civil level, right? When you get a speeding ticket, this is not a criminal punishment. This is a civil infraction. You get some points on your license, you pay a fine, and then you go on your way. But if you do it enough, you lose your right to drive. Now, in terms of regulating misinformation, that's more or less the model I support, actually. I want people to be able to express like controversial opinions, but I want them to be well substantiated controversial opinions, right? If you want to tell me how like capitalism leads to like the death of society, go for it. If you want to tell me how like I don't know, like liberal idealism, liberal conceptions of like globalism will lead to like the decay of the nation state and the fundamental eroding of our values, okay, I can hear that out. Like there's a really good article that I read recently. I'm going to detour here a little bit by what's his name? Julius Klein, I think, or Klein. It's Klein or Klein, I don't remember. But he's like populist conservative, and usually when I hear that, I think, oh, I'm fascist. And I think I somewhat understand his criticism. I don't think it's accurate to say you can't fit within the left with the certain paradigm that he lays out, but it's an argument I think is worth making, and it's not based off misinformation at all. It's a very solidly constructed point. Oh, let me see if I can find it real quick. Oh, great, this thing's not working. Julius Klein. American Affairs Journal. Is this it? Hopefully it has a list of his art. Alternatively, nothing will fucking load today. I'll give this about 5 more fucking seconds. Whatever. Okay, fuck it. We'll just get into the arguments here. So the stop analogy, I don't think he'd be comfortable with, because we literally use the government to enforce like safe driving behaviors, right? And I'll come back to that driving analogy because I do think it is useful in this instance to talk about free speech akin to driving, where I think everyone should more or less have that right. But that we should revoke when people are using it so recklessly, right? If I knew there weren't laws against drunk driving, it's going to make me not want to drive, basically, right? Because I know driving is so dangerous, right? There's all these drunk people driving, so we ban drunk drivers. I tend to enjoy speeding, within certain limits. Do I think people should be going over 100 miles per hour? Probably not. I don't think there's really much of a reason for that. Should we restrict that? All right, fuck it. You keep it under 100. If the speed limit's somewhere like 80 miles per hour, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Whatever. So I do think it's a valuable way to consider speech, right? Particularly with like the point system that we have for like driver's licenses, because you could have someone like, let's just choose Tucker Carlson as an example. Famously had a white nationalist writer as his head writer on his staff. I would look up the article, but nothing wants to work right now, so whatever. Yeah, so like the way Tucker constructs arguments is usually with very misleading information or bad information. There's this piece I'm recalling where he talks about like immigration and how like, oh, their crime rates are super high, and he cites an article by this research done by I'm forgetting his name. He's like a conservative activist basically, and it was John Lott. His name was John Lott. I'm sorry, and he did this specifically in like Arizona prisons. So that's the only place you could do this. So you can't generalize this across the whole country. You can generalize it maybe to the Arizona system, right? Arizona's a border state. You expect to have more, illegals who would be arrested there or whatever, or illegal immigrants or whatever you want to call them. And he presented that as though like this was good evidence. Now, here's the thing. That's one article or one study within a larger context of studies that have an opposite position. The overwhelming plurality of data is that immigrants come to this country, they do less crime. He chose to cherry pick one study that has a huge methodological flaw. Literally, I think it's Cato or whatever. Is it Cato? I think it was Cato. One of the writers at Cato, which is a libertarian think tank, right-wing libertarian. I don't generally agree with them, but they tend to be somewhat pro-immigrant, and they're pretty fact-based there, because fortunately when facts are on your side, you can roll with the facts. And they talk about how he had this crazy categorization error. Basically, there's a box you check on if someone's a citizen or not. And if they didn't check yes on that box, which can just be a clerical error, he categorized them as illegals. And let him enormously inflate the amount of people who are in the country illegally, in prisons illegally. So he can inflate the relative proportion of the population, which is really bad. And then like there's a couple of back and forth between him and Cato, and then like it ended up going to like the Bureau of Prisons or something for Arizona, and they're like, we didn't tell him this thing that he said, like, because he was like, oh, they told me I could do that, they told me that was an accurate interpretation of their data, and they're like, no, we didn't. This is how I roughly remember it went. Okay, we're a little off topic here. All right, so let's see. Not specific words. So one point they made, and I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit because it was a back and forth conversation for an hour and 60 minutes. I'm just trying to get like the good stuff here. So let's deal with the tolerance paradox first. So one of the claims he makes is he'd be worried about like, if we try and suppress their speech here, what will they do when they're in power? Which a lot of these things here do seem intuitive. Like, I get it, right? Now, 2 points I make here. One, they already do that. Famously, during the Bush administration, there's constantly like a war on like whistleblowers, I guess, but that's not exclusive to conservatives or Democrats, or the Democrats, I suppose. But famously, the Bush administration threatened, I think it was Comedy Central, and got Bill Maher's, I think it was called Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher, got it taken off the air for some very controversial comment he made about like 9/11 hijackers. He called them not cowards. In context, you can understand what he's saying, but definitely an edgy way to phrase it. So here's the thing. I understand that, but like speech needs to happen within like certain parameters that facilitate. Actually, I should deal with this argument after I deal with another one because it sort of is built on like another thing. What's facts harm is? Let's just structure this a little better. Actually, I guess I could just do it as part of this. So, the thing is, like, when we want to regulate speech, it's not like I want to get rid of conflicting ideas necessarily. I think disagreement is healthy, but disagreement within certain paradigms. Like, I don't think there's necessarily a value in having someone, go to like a town hall and then scream the N-word over and over and over again until the meeting just disbands because no productive dialogue can take place. There's an understanding that certain types, like time is like a finite like resource or whatever. And when you let people just like bring like crazy ideas that are like completely without facts or anything into discussions, what they serve to do is that they function as sort of like a filibuster on reasonable discourse, because crazy ideas just overwhelm that type of they overwhelm like productive dialogue, and that's their goal, right? That's the goal here, is to disrupt productive discourse. Further, like if you're so tolerant to where you tolerate like if I like just imagine actually I'll use the Weimar Republic example. The Weimar Republic was the government that was in Germany from about 1919 to 1932 or so. The Weimar Republic was very, very liberal. There was no monarchy. They got rid of the monarchy as a result of the post World War One agreements, if I'm not mistaken, and they created like some liberal democratic governments basically. They had pretty much unrestricted free speech, and as a result of that, Hitler's rhetoric was very effective, and the Nazi rhetoric was very, very effective. I would pull up a study, but it's not working. But basically, like the Nazis used radio very effectively to message and like galvanize support and create support for their movements. Right? Infamously, one of the first attempts to overthrow the government was the beer hall putsch, which was only about 4,000 people, and they failed at that. And now, if their numbers were limited to those 4,000 people in a beer hall in Munich, well, we probably wouldn't have had Nazi Germany, right? The problem is they were able to perpetuate their ideas. Hitler was a very charismatic speaker. He was able to speak to a large audience by utilizing the radio. And with the study I'm referring to, and I'll try and link in the bottom of the video once I get all this shit working again, I guess, talks about how support for Nazis was increased in areas where there wasn't pro-government like radio playing, basically like things that were like pro-democracy, where they tried to do something to basically like suppress like the Nazi rhetoric coming through over the radio. It was very effective in that respect. So if we value free speech, okay, oh, right. And once the Nazis got in power, they got rid of free speech. Like there's a famous clip of Richard Spencer, American Nazi, where he says like, cards on the table, like we don't care about free speech, right? And like his other Nazi compatriot was like, yeah, we don't give a shit. Like we don't care. Like free speech is not a value that fascists have. If you care about free speech, you should not want like fascists to be able to use misinformation to cultivate political power, which will then result in there being less free speech because they will literally work to take it away. I mean, Trump famously ran saying like, we need to open up the libel laws in this country. Now you can make an argument that maybe it's a little too hard to hold certain people accountable for things they say. Okay, I'll have an argument for that, but that's not what he cared about. He just didn't want people saying bad shit about him, and like he was known for like using baseless lawsuits to like harass people who posted negative stories about him, wrote negative stories about him, read negative articles. That's what he was known for. It's crazy. But like that's not really the way we want that to go. So anyway, the point is, if we're so tolerant of if we're tolerant to like the intolerant, right? Eventually the intolerant will take power, and you'll lose all those things you wanted to protect to begin with. Now, does that mean we just ban people from being fascists? No, but it means like I don't act like fascists have something valuable to say on free speech and discourse. When I hear like Trumpists or whatever who like don't believe in free speech, think the media is like the enemy of the people, and all this shit, and like who literally like one of them mailed bombs to media outlets. Like this is how hyperbolic this rhetoric is. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, like there's no value in this. And not only is there no value, there's negative value, because allowing this type of ideology to manifest itself results in all of us having less aggregate freedom. The thing that our tolerance is supposed to protect, it's supposed to give us like bounds in which to operate, and it just removes that entirely. So I don't know, I'm not breaking ground on the tolerance paradox, but it's like, yeah, like if you had to choose a world where like let's say there's three groups. Let's say there's liberals, there's socialists, and there's fascists, and one of those three groups, or fuck it, we'll say two of those three groups get to control like the contours of public discourse. They get to control free speech laws. Which group would you want in power? And like, I don't know, probably like pretty left leaning. I'd say somewhere like a combination of liberals and socialists I'd probably want in charge of that. And the one group I would never want anywhere near the levels of power is fascists, because they fundamentally don't have free speech as a value. Many socialists do value individual rights, usually within a collective framework. Liberals overwhelmingly value individual rights, but they understand that these rights exist to perpetuate themselves. and to try and include as much discourse as reasonable. But that doesn't mean all discourse is reasonable and all discourse needs to be included. And I'm going to try and explain that in a little bit. I think there's another point where I'll expand on that a little bit more, basically about the nature of misinformation. So yeah, I guess the gist of that is like, one, they're already trying to suppress dissident speech, and two, there's an interesting NPR thing I just like listened to on a drive that I was on about how like Trump installed like this crazy conservative documentarian into the Voice of America, which is an American like news outlet that's not focused in the United States. I mean, people don't know of it, but it's focused on Europe and like global shit. And he worked there to just purge dissidents. Like, that's what he did. They already do this. It's very important to understand. They are already doing this. And the only reason they're not effective is because they didn't have enough time to like completely warp our government. Point is about how we need to be better. Like this is where my, I guess, this is a more structural critique. Angels seem to be very individualistic and very like liberal in this sense, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think caring about individual rights is very important, but understanding how to value those rights and how to protect them, I think, is where we would have a difference. So he made a point about how he thinks we all just need to like sort of be better. We need to understand how we engage with like propaganda online, and basically like we need to engage more responsibly. And I agree. I think people are capable of engaging in media responsibly, but that's a process, right? I'm going to make a few comparisons to like COVID-19, basically. So the way misinformation is modeled. Do I have the study open here? Ugh, everything's so messed up. Incredible. The way misinformation is modeled is usually like a disease. You have like nodes of spread, like a super spreader event, and then you have like things emanating from that and creating more misinformation. But you have large sources of spread, and the way you stop that isn't through like an individual focus, right? With the pandemic, we don't say like, hey guys, everyone should just do better, right? We didn't do that because that doesn't work. What you want to do, oh man, I should really make sure this is recording properly. Yeah, it is. All right. What you want to do is have policies that are effective at a societal level that like encourage people, incentivize people, or make people make better decisions to protect that collective good, right? We do certain lockdowns to one degree or another to try and prevent the transmission of COVID-19. And to an extent, the same thing can be applied to misinformation. Misinformation spreads similar to like viral contagions, or complex contagions, I think is what the article calls it, where you can trace back to like certain places where like massive amounts of spread come from. There's articles about how misinformation spreads way faster than correct and accurate news, for a variety of reasons. But I also think it's very weird to like expect people. Now, I think you can train people to be better at it, but no one's ever going to be perfect at it, right? So we want to have like a robust system of like information where we want to have like a robust system of information where you can get differing perspectives that are grounded in reality to some extent. And the problem with this individual focus is like you're polluting, you're allowing, like, you're just saying like, hey everyone, you should just be better, ignoring how echo chambers work, ignoring how human psychology works, ignoring confirmation bias. Like, it's a very nice idea, but it just doesn't work in reality. And if I care about the human condition and human flourishing, then I need to ground like my beliefs with like the factual reality of like how humans function, right? I think it's really weird to say like, people, you can just be better, right? I mean, some people maybe, but propaganda is designed to be incendiary, to trick the average person who's not expecting to be exposed to propaganda designed to emotionally manipulate them. It's literally, how do I phrase this here? Like, propaganda and misinformation is designed to be consumed by many people and be believed by them, or be internalized by them through some mechanism or another, and I'll talk about that a little bit later too. That's the point of it. And I think it's weird to tell people like, you should be better than these processes that have been like literally tested and confirmed by like psychological studies that are designed to manipulate you. That's what they're there for. Like, propaganda is designed to emotionally manipulate you, get you in an agitated state, make you hate something, make you be scared of something. That's what's designed to do. It's weird to expect people to just be better than that. And like, we can definitely do better about making our population more immune to it, but like, that literally takes decades. Like, we can create an education environment from like the ground up where we cultivate like, media literacy and critical thinking, and I'm totally an advocate of that. But that doesn't help us in the here and now, because there's one party, which is like, here's what gets political. The Republican Party hates education. This is no secret. They call it liberal indoctrination and all this other BS. Because it undermines their cultural narratives that they're trying to push forward. So you have one group that's actively trying to destroy our ability to like fix our education system so that we have people who are more critically thinking, because their entire narratives are based around, misinformation and propaganda designed to get people not to critically think. And now, not to overly harp on conservatives, liberals do this a lot too. I talk to plenty of people who are left-leaning who are fucking idiots. And I say that with love, okay? It's very easy to get caught up in emotionally driven narratives for anybody. But there's a lot more respect for facts and information among like liberal and left-leaning people than there are among conservatives. Conservatives are actively hostile towards academics, towards education, towards Fox fucking News now, because they're Fox News is now a new liberal media agency. This is crazy. This is insane. I don't know how else to put that. Did I not have a thing here for the point I wanted to make? I guess I can. Okay, I already addressed that. Okay, we're making pretty good progress here. I think I only have like 2 more points I really wanted to cover. I guess I'll try and segue the other things. I want to talk about like the nature of misinformation. It's funny enough, I've been having this interpersonal issue at work, and because I understand like how narrative structures sort of work, I work at a very conservative place, and I am not very conservative. I don't really hide that I'm not conservative, because I like arguing with people. I like talking to people who disagree with me. The conservatives I work with don't like disagreement. When they talk about like politics or their beliefs, they want you to basically yes them and talk about how you're correct. They don't want you to disagree. As a result, I believe there's this like, my boss sort of confirmed this, because like, I can't, they'll never be like open about it towards me, but they'll be open about it towards other people. But the people I work with tend to like have a generally negative impression on me because of my left-leaning like politics. And they constantly just keep saying how I'm doing my job wrong. And I think there's been like 6 times where they've like looked into stuff I've done saying I did something wrong. And I've never actually done anything wrong. Everything they've looked into, I've done fine. I mean, I do stuff wrong, right? Don't tell anyone. I don't go in dress code all the time. But the stuff they're accusing me of doing wrong, I'm not doing, like, I've never done wrong. Every time I look into it, it's not true. But here's the thing. It's building a narrative of, like, look how many times we had to look into Joe. That's my name. GKR Joe, whatever you want to call me. Look how many times he messed up. Look how many times we had to look into what he did. What sticks is the amount of times I had to look into a behavior I did. Not that I was exonerated every time. The fact that they're looking into what I'm doing is a condemnation of itself. Like, oh, look, we had to double check his work again. But you're double checking it for no reason. You made up a problem and you're looking into it. And there's not a problem here. I mean, I don't really care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect my job because my boss is like really smart and like a very good guy. So this is not a problem for me. But imagine if I had a boss who wasn't competent and didn't like realize that these people are kind of idiots. It's like basically like a different department that's very, very conservative leaning. So the problem is looking at misinformation, and I'm basically quoting Jason, or I'm going to paraphrase Jason Stanley, and I would pull up the fucking quote, but nothing wants to work today. And basically, like, you can't look at misinformation the way you look at normal facts, right? News stories that are designed to be like propagandistic are not designed to like say factual statements about someone. They're designed to create narratives. I think a really good way to understand this is the Clinton body count. Clinton body count, some conspiracy theory about like, oh, look at all these people who have mysteriously died near the Clintons, right? And it's like a list of like 100 people or something who have mysteriously died while being related or knowing the Clintons, okay? People die all the time. Crazy shit happens. Now, here's the thing. You can look into any individual one of those people and you're like, oh, no, that Clintons obviously didn't kill him. But like, I had a roommate who made this point, like, yeah, sure. I mean, I doubt they killed all those people, but like, heuristically, like, they probably killed some of them. That's not how this works. That makes no sense. Like, if anything, you should see some of these things being proved wrong and just assume they're all probably wrong, right? But that's not how our brains work. You're like, well, if they're saying all of these things, some of them have to be true. And it's not. Like, that was the problem with that. Like, the Clintons aren't just having people whacked in our political environment. And like, but that's how this works. Like, misinformation is not designed to be a fact that's consumed like, oh, that's interesting. It's meant to be segments in a narrative that are meant to be generally defamatory statements towards someone. Like, do you need to believe that Clinton, has Kuro from cannibalism, or eats babies or is bought off by the banks or is in bed with Wall Street, or every single one of these things, like some of them might be true, some of them might be true to some degree, some of them might not be true at all. Like you can go down the list, like the crazy shit people say about, oh, they're in a satanic cult. Oh, look, there was flies flying on Clinton's head. That's because she's dying. She's a secret lizard person, and like her flesh is rotting off of her because it's not real. Like I'm not making these things up. I swear. Like you could find people saying these crazy fucking things about the Clintons or Democrats, whatever. There was actually it was recently some guy I talked to as a former QAnon person, and like QAnon's fucking crazy. It's a like actually you could just look at the QAnon beliefs and just imagine that like this went from just like being about Hillary Clinton to like all Democrats are this. We're all like satanic, Satan worshiping, cannibalistic pedophiles. Like that's what they think of like Democrats. But like these things are not meant to be taken literally. They're meant to be taken abstractly, right? Now if you tell them you're a Democrat, they might think you're okay. Like, well, you know, Democrats, like they're this, that, and the other thing. They'll speak abstractly about this as a group, not about like certain individuals, because it's this generally defamatory idea that's perpetuated about a group or about a person. That's the point. It's not meant to be interpreted literally. It's meant to be interpreted emotionally. About why you don't like this group, why you feel so negatively about Democrats, why you feel so negatively about Hillary Clinton, why you feel so negative about Nancy Pelosi. And that's meant to give you a justification for that anger. Oh, they're that bad thing, this bad thing, that bad thing, right? And the conspiracy theories get ludicrous. And it's like, how can you believe any of these? But that's the thing, right? It creates a catch-22. If Hillary Clinton bothers responding to, guys, I don't have Curo because I eat babies, right? This is literally a thing. When Hillary Clinton collapsed in the 2016 campaign, there's a rumor spread that, oh, she has Curu, I think it's C-U-R-U, which is a disease you get from consuming human brains, or just humans? I think it's human brains. That was a rumor they spread about her, that's why she collapsed. She just had pneumonia. She's an old person. Shit fucking happens, okay? People get sick. The fact she was on the campaign trail with pneumonia is probably a testament to her strength, not her weakness, right? Fuck, I hate Hillary Clinton. Why am I being forced to defend Hillary Clinton? But whatever. But the point is, like, you didn't have to believe this is true, but that's the point. Every single one of these stories is not meant to be taken literally or true. It's meant to be generally defamatory towards the character or the group that you're saying it about. It's narrative. It's not like research. It's not structure. And to an extent, we all engage in narratives to like understand stuff. But this is raw narrative, meant to like emotionally. There's a term for this. I think it's called effective override, basically, where like you just get people so emotionally loaded that they just stop thinking about like facts and reasoning, and they just evolve to this pure emotionally like caveman brain or lizard brain thinking. So to expand on that, the next point was something where Angel said, what matters is, I don't understand where this leading goes, because you run into all these sorts of weird problems. What matters is the fact that people want to harm and misinform people, not the specific words they use. Basically, like for example, like I was talking with like a black coworker of mine who's in my master's program, and I quoted, if I'm quoting someone using the N-word, I'll just say the N-word. And I don't know if that's necessarily okay, but I feel like it's weird to censor that in that context, right? Like if you're reading Huckleberry Finn, I think it's okay to say the N-word. If you're reading historical texts or you're quoting people to like demonstrate a point, I think it's okay within certain contexts. And what I was quoting was the, oh shoot, why am I forgetting his name? Is the Republican strategist, Lee Atwater, the famous Lee Atwater quote, where he says the N-word like seven times about how you use policies to like hurt black people that you use policies to hurt black people that don't specify race. Like you use these abstractions that like race is coming on the back end. I guess I'll just say it, like whatever. He's just like, you know, he's like saying nigger hurts you, and it's like, oh shit. And I said in the conversation, no one cared, because I'm talking about how like race was used in this way, and it's appropriate to use harsh language like that when it's demonstrating like a historical point and whatever. And so I get what they're saying. Like the example he used was like Christopher Hitchens showed that you can scream fire in a crowded theater like if the context is correct. And it's like, yeah, sure, but the fire in a crowded theater thing is not meant to say you can't literally say fire in a crowded theater. It's that you can expect that behavior in many contexts to lead to panic and people getting hurt and injured. And that's what that idea, like fire in a crowded theater, is supposed to convey. Um, and it seemed like Angel was suggesting that how do we like that what we actually don't like here is the malicious action and the malicious harm from these words. Not that we don't like the words themselves. And I would agree, and I think that's sort of what we want to do, right? But the problem here is like now we have to figure out people's intent. And I do think you can reasonably infer people's intent, but you run into this problem with a lot of people who are like, you know, the centrist groups on YouTube, the anti-woke. You can't know my intention. No, I can't know your fucking intention. But it's ridiculous to act like I don't even know why. I get fucking neo-reactionaries and centrists are the ones who do this. I don't know why. Oh, you can just like read minds? You can read. Bro, I can't read fucking minds, but like we all do this in everyday fucking life where people say things and we make logical inferences of their beliefs based off the things they say. This is just what humans do, okay? And I can be wrong, and that's okay, and you can tell me why I'm wrong, but to act like it's not reasonable, we can make inference of people's beliefs and thoughts based on this is ludicrous. Let's see. And what I thought was strange about this position is like, okay, sure, like I care about the harm and misinformation, and it being intentional makes it worse, I guess. But so let's say like Donald Trump perpetuates something, and we'll just pretend for the sake of argument that Donald Trump knows, for a matter of fact, we can prove this somehow. We have brain scans, we can prove Donald Trump knows what he's saying is wrong and a lie, okay? So he says a thing, and then one of his followers on Twitter, 50 million followers or however many he had, one of his followers sees this, they believe him, and they retweet it, or they start using that argument in regular conversation. Well, or let's say like Tucker Carlson picks it up, or some like low-level conservative news outlet picks it up. Okay, well, do they know they're lying? Well, they're going off what the president said. They assume the president's right. They trust the president. Well, they're not lying, but the misinformation is being spread all the same. Does it matter, like, what their intent was? If the harm was bad? Like, certainly the intent makes it worse, but that doesn't mean the action wasn't bad, right? Like, if I intentionally go out and kill somebody, that's really bad. But if I accidentally go out and kill somebody, well, there's still a punishment for that. There's still consequences when you like punch someone in the face, and like, you know, you didn't know they have a special disorder where their bones are actually made out of, I don't know, like powder. And then when you punched him in the face, your hand just went right through his face and just melted his brain, right? You didn't know that, but that's your fault anyway. It doesn't matter. It means like, okay, well, you're not going to hit with murder charges, but you are going to hit with manslaughter charges. You're still going to jail. You're still in trouble. You still did a bad thing. But like, it's not as bad as if you intentionally did it. The point is, you have to discourage this either way. It doesn't matter. And like, that's my issue. Like, how do we differentiate idiots from malcontents here? How do I know who's bad faith and who's not bad faith? And at a certain point, the answer has to be, I don't fucking care. I don't care who's bad faith. I don't care who's honest, who's not honest here. Like, I care about the harm being put out into the world. And like, sure, the people doing it like intentionally, like the originators of this propaganda are probably worse, but like, to what extent? And like, this is where it gets really, really awkward. Like, there are people who perpetuate those who are just crazy conspiracy theorists, right? And like, they go through these like layers of like reframing and like I'll say mainstreaming of like fringe conservative conspiracy theories, where like maybe we're blaming the Jews at first. Maybe this person's crazy and they're schizophrenic, and they make up these wild conspiracy theories. They write, you know, a 10-page manifesto or whatever the fuck, like talking about how like the Jewish like plot or whatever. And then like, as they get cycled through different like filters, we remove some like the more hyperbolic nature of it. But like, okay, this is a crazy person who genuinely believed what they said, but like, what does it matter? What does it matter that you genuinely believe what you said? Like, to me, it doesn't. Like, it matters that you were wrong. Like, there's this funny conversation between a YouTuber named Vash and I think it was Charisma on Command, which is a big YouTube channel. I think he has like a podcast. I don't remember the name of it. But he's like, you know, what if like the guy who went into the what's the name of it? The synagogue in Pennsylvania, basically went in there and killed like 13 Jews or whatever. Like, in this guy's head, he was a hero. Like, what if he really believed that this Jewish cabal was really there trying to like destroy Western civilization? To this guy, he's a hero. Well, yeah, he's a hero, but we know he's fucking crazy. I don't care if he genuinely believes this. He's not a fucking hero. He's a murderer and an anti-Semite and crazy. Like, it doesn't matter how you got to these beliefs, how genuine they are. The genuineness of your belief doesn't mean your belief is somehow like good. Like, it might make it slightly less bad, but honestly, to me, like, that's the part that makes like discourse on places like Twitter or really anywhere like so toxic, is many of these people present to me arguments, and like, no, I don't think any of them are bad faith. Or sorry, not any, but there are people who are bad faith. Like, I think Ben Shapiro is fucking bad faith. I think Jordan Peterson is probably bad faith. I think they probably know what they're doing is wrong, And they don't care because they're engaged in some ideological project. But most people who are quoting them, who are repeating their talking points, they genuinely believe them, right? A good example would be abortion as a wedge issue. Abortion was a bipartisan issue in like the 70s, but the Republicans took it, turned it into a culture war issue, used it to galvanize conservatives underneath the Republican Party, and then ripped them away from the Democratic Party using that among other wedge issues like race and shit, race and welfare. They did these things very effectively. But now that I have all these people who are like vehemently pro-life, who are like, oh, it's abortion is murder. Well, do they genuinely believe that? Yeah, they do. They 100% do. I'll never doubt the sincerity of pro-life activists. They are very sincere in this belief. Now, the fact that this belief was manufactured, like explicitly for like political reasons, does it matter? And like, the answer is no. I mean, if you're lying, you're lying, and if you're if the ideas you're spreading are harmful, like there needs to be some way that we can curate this. And I guess the last point we'll go on here was it was talking about Trump banning like his own the banning of Trump off Twitter and other platforms. And, you know, this is a common like tends to be like a libertarian talking point, like, oh, you know, you're gonna have like the Streisand, is it the Streisand effect? The fact I can't even remember it makes this even funnier to me. I think it's the Streisand effect, but it could be something else. Maybe it's the Madonna effect. I don't remember. Beyonce effect. I don't know. But basically, the general idea is that when you try and bury information, you actually just make it more accessible and more well known. This is not true. This is a lie. Okay. Most people, if I ask them, well, what is the Streisand or whatever the fuck effect? The fact I can't remember it makes this even funnier, by the way, because I genuinely can't. This is not a bit. I really don't remember the name of the effect. It's one of those three names. It's definitely not the Beyonce one. I made that up. I thought it was funny. So the Madonna or Barbra Streisand. I don't remember which. But the point is, like, if you ask people, like, well, what were they trying to hide? They don't know the answer. But that's the point, right? You just know, like, abstractly that, like, oh, they stopped them from trying to, like, they tried to hide information and people knew about it. But the fact no one knows about it anymore shows that, well, I guess their effects to bury it were kind of good, right? You can argue about whether we ought to ban people from Twitter, but arguing that it's not effective is not true. It is good. Fucking Christ. Is this working yet? Is this working yet? Come on. Still not working. Incredible. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. I had like articles I wanted to pull up for this, but whatever. There's like a Vox article that talks about like literally Trump getting banned off Twitter like correlates. I mean, you can't say it's causal. It probably is a contributing factor though, like a massively contributing factor. Was like a 70% reduction in misinformation spread on Twitter. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Because misinformation is modeled. I mentioned it before. It's modeled like a disease, basically. And Trump was a major carrier of the disease of misinformation and COVID-19. Funny enough. So keeping him away from other people is good, right? Can Trump create his own insular Trump Twitter? Trumper? Donalder? I don't know how we would brand that. Magitter? Okay, well, this bit's gone too far. Him making his own platform is fine. You're literally talking about quarantining a disease, right? Okay, they all go on Parler or they all go on whatever website. Okay, cool. Now you have it insulated to their community. Is there ways that like, you know, that can be bad? Could they like insularly, you know, radicalize themselves? Sure, but they're already doing that. They had echo chambers on Twitter where they all hear each other. Like, what's funny is I don't know how big the whole anti-woke movement is, but on my Twitter I'm inundated with it because, funny enough, they annoy me, so I respond to them and I follow certain people and I get this dumb stupid anti-woke shit. I don't know how big anti-wokeness is on Twitter because I don't give a shit about Twitter. I don't spend a whole lot of time on Twitter. The anti-woke stuff is not that big of a fucking deal to me, but it shows up on my feed all the time, probably because it annoys me and it keeps me engaged, right? Because I tend to like things that annoy me, so it gives me things that annoy me. Which is like, okay, like whatever. But like we create these echo chambers here. But the problem is the Twitter echo chamber can bring in other people, right? Maybe you're just some dude talking about like, you know, maybe you're just a huge Marvel fan, right? This is actually like how Gamergate shit got transitioned into a reactionary movement. Oh fuck, that's a whole different topic. Whatever. You can find tons of fucking left-leaning people talking about Gamergate as a pipeline to like reactionary thought or whatever. Like Steve Bannon explicitly saw how mad gamers get and how passionate they get about stuff and how he was able to channel that. There's a whole fucking book on it. Maybe I'll I don't remember the name of it. It's I don't remember. Maybe I'll post in the description of the video or something. But where was I going with this shit? Gamers, reactionary content. Where was I going here? Falsehoods, stop brain disease. Blah, 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 blah. Right. So you're just there. You want to talk about the newest Marvel thing, and then all of a sudden you get inundated with hashtags about how, oh, they're trying to PC Marvel with Black Panther, and they're trying to do these race war narratives in Black Panther, and you're just some fucking Marvel fan, and you're like, oh man, they're gonna fuck up Black Panther, and unfortunately for them, Black Panther was actually a pretty good movie. I think I had this argument with some people. Fucking what's his name? Killmonger is like the best villain in the entire Marvel franchise, like hands down best fucking villain. Maybe Thanos is pretty good, but as a one-off villain, oh, easily the best. Best motivations, really, really understandable. Had like when you have like a bad guy you can empathize with, or you can understand their perspective but disagree with their mode of implementation. That's really cool to me. Whatever. Who fucking cares? So now here's a movie that they mobilized at similar outrage, right? What's it? Captain Marvel, I think. Miss Marvel. What the fuck was it called? Captain Marvel? I don't remember. One with Brie Larson. People fucking hated Brie Larson. And here's the thing: that movie sucked. That was probably one of the worst Marvel movies. Her as a character just wasn't that interesting. Like her powers and stuff were just so fucking overpowered. Very very weird character. Movie was kind of bad. I think most people think the movie is bad. So they rail about like, oh look, they're trying to like make women like mainstream. Like, okay, well this resonates with people now. Now you have people who just want to talk about Marvel being told about how like, oh, the woke agenda is ruining their Marvel loving experience. But guess what? If you have the crazy people doing that, but they're on Parler, guess what? The normal Marvel fan is not going to be exposed to their stupidity and their lies and their misinformation and their propaganda. Like, they're not going to be exposed to it. So they won't get dragged down that rabbit hole of reactionary politics. So yes, quarantining crazy people like Trump is good. Even if they want to go make their own fucking website, go for it. Like when they banned like the Donald off of Reddit or something, I think that was like 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. I don't know. They banned the Donald off of Reddit because it was crazy. It was an insane fucking place. And they made their own thing, but I'm sure that community is insular, way smaller, and doesn't have the public reach of every single person who goes on Reddit. Even if he makes his own platform, that is a win in and of itself. Now, will he do it? Maybe. But like every day that goes by where he doesn't launch this new platform, like guess what? This is good. Most people are falling out. Like there are people who are going to like, now that they're not caught up in this constant moment of like, propaganda from Trump, like you're going to just, kind of like chill out a little bit. Biden's calm, everything's whatever. The world's not actually falling apart. We're not at war with China or Russia or I don't know, whatever the crazy conspiracies are. We're not putting conservatives in concentration camps. Jesus Christ, I just spit all over my keyboard. Like none of these things are happening. So like their desire to go see what Donald Trump has to say on his like new Donald Trump version of Twitter, it's just not going to be there. Like for example, like saying like, oh, he'll just make his own platform. Well, some people don't know this, but like Trump used the office. Like yeah, sure, he can like get in front of a mic and do something, but like that reach is just not as good as Twitter, right? That's the reason he used Twitter and didn't use other mechanisms, because the efficiency of the mechanism is a value in and of itself. Making their mechanisms of communication more inefficient inhibits the spread of their cancerous ideas. So like when Trump got banned off of Twitter, what's funny is he like went on the presidential Twitter account. They just suspended that for like 2 weeks until he was gone. And then he started releasing functionally tweets from the White House press office or something. I don't remember what it's exactly called, but like he released these things that were like basically tweets. Like I think he even used random like capitalization to like publish these things. But people don't know about that shit because guess what? It was harder to access and people didn't give a fuck. Like, oh look, here's Trump publishing stuff through the official White House communication page. And guess what? Like no one fucking saw this shit. Instead of it going to like hundreds of millions of people, like, I don't know, probably a few 100,000 people saw it. At most, like probably like a fucking million. Like it was just not as well spread because like the medium he used, while it was still an official White House thing, was not as accessible as Twitter. So like you can argue whether we ought to do this, but arguing that it's ineffective and then, oh, he'll just make his own community and then we won't be able to reach these people. These are already problems that exist. And what you're describing is like literally quarantining a virus, a thing that we do to viruses. But once you understand misinformation as a virus, like it becomes way easier. Let's see. I think that's about it. Let's see. Did I actually do that in good time? 44 minutes. Cool. All right, I guess we'll end this here. I really wish every fucking... This is incredible. I don't know why none of this wants to fucking work. Because like I even opened up a ping and the ping said everything was fine, and the ping was a lie. Alright, let's do the outro. We're done. I'm done ranting about free speech. One day I'll do this in a slightly more structured way. I kind of just wrote these notes while listening to their conversation. It's a good conversation. I think if you want to hear like a more like level-headed like version of like the free speech absolutist argument, I think he does a pretty good version of it. I just think it's still so fundamentally flawed. I would be very curious to what his responses are. I think he said he'd have a conversation with me. Does it even show on here? There it is. So feel free to DM me. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Cool. So I'll shoot him this video. See if he wants to schedule something. Maybe if Mr. Graham wants to come, he can too. It'd be fun. All right, let's. I'm so confused. Oh, all right. I think never mind. Okay, that's irrelevant. All right, outro.